A bitter ending. A new beginning.
It was nice to meet you.
Same here.
A first date
Maybe this wasn't such a good idea.
that could be her last.
I don't think we go to it. I think it comes to us.
A special Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
Hello, yo, and welcome to this week's edition of Slade, the Buffyverse Revisited. I'm one of your hosts. I'm Jeremy.
I'm your other host, James. That was beautiful, Jeremy.
Was it?
Yeah, it was.
Was it graceful?
I don't know about graceful. I think next week maybe open the show with a full yodel.
Yodelodely. So this week we will be yodeling into season 2, episode 5, Reptile Boy.
Yodeling into like a lonely goat herd.
Yeah. This has got to be about werewolves, obviously.
Oh, clearly.
I mean, based on the name alone.
Spoiler warning, it's not about werewolves, and I'm pretty sure at this point we're never going to get any fucking werewolves in this show.
Apparently. I'm ready to write a letter and send it back in time, because I'm quite displeased with He Who Shall Not Be Named's lack of werewolfishness.
Right. It's a monster that should have been introduced like very early, first season,
at least second episode.
Right.
You know, we meet the vampires in the first episode. Werewolves should have been second episode.
Right. We're introduced to the master, the annoying one, werewolves.
Oh God, the annoying one. I'm so glad he's dead. I'm so glad they murdered that child.
Wow.
Well, that's basically what they did, or Spike did.
That is what Spike did. You are correct.
Well, do we have any news, notes, corrections, anything from last week? I'm sure we have no correspondence.
We do have correspondence.
What?
A YouTube viewer left a message on the video podcast for episode 3, School Hard.
Okay.
It wasn't actually about the episode, but it was about our
total lack of professionalism.
No, that won't be until people start listening to last week's episode.
That's true. Yeah.
Inca Mummy Girl.
Yeah.
No, it was about our small tirade, I guess, at the beginning of the episode when we kind of decided to speak out about the Supreme Court and everything that's going on here in the U.S.
Okay.
They said, I'll read it.
Okay.
They said, "Thank you for feeling the need to speak up about what's happening in this country and hatred versus disagreement. I was just going to post on Facebook, and probably still will, asking for men to speak up as well. Proud of you both."
Sweet.
So.
And who is that from? Did it say, or?
Silver Siren.
Okay. Well, Silver Siren, you are welcome. And if this was a different show, I would have a lot more to say on the matter, but
right.
It's not. So we'll leave it at that. But
we will. But we Silver Siren actually has commented frequently on the YouTube videos.
Oh.
It's mostly just like, you know, quoting funny things we have said in the episode that they apparently got a kick out of, like when for episode 12, Prophecy Girl. I don't know if you remember, but when Joyce told her story about going to the college dance alone and meeting Buffy's dad, who was there with a date. Mm-hmm. And I said, just confirming that Joyce is in fact a whore.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
That's right. I forgot about that. Yeah.
Yes. Silver Siren did comment on that episode. She put that in quotes and LOL'd on it. But
And we know from now on that Joyce is in fact a whore.
Right.
Or she was at one time in her life. Maybe she's no longer that. But she's not around very much, and she spends a lot of time at this museum, I suppose, or art gallery. Yeah,
right.
Which means whoring around, I think.
Wow, it's possible. That's possible. Yeah. But let's jump into.
And I am no slut shamer. Let me just put that there. This is all in good hilarity.
Right. Definitely. Let's jump into some dates and deets here.
Dates and deets.
As previously mentioned, we will be revisiting Buffy the Vampire Slayer Season 2, Episode 5, which is our 17th episode of the series overall.
And basically puts us almost through the first quarter of the season.
Yeah. That was something else I was going to mention before we got started. I cannot believe we are already at Episode 5.
Yeah, I think we've got this pretty much. It took us a whole season and a few more. I think we've got this down to a science now, so it seems to be flowing a little quicker and a little easier.
Yeah. Our episode title is Reptile Boy. Our director is David Greenwalt, and our episode credited writer is also David Greenwalt. Our original air date was October 13th, 1997 on the now defunct WB network.
Which we discussed ad nauseum last week.
We did.
Re-listened to the episode. I was like, I think we spent about 15 minutes talking about the CW network.
We went off in so many directions that didn't have anything to do with the episode at some points.
I think it's clear we were both on some type of drugs last week.
Something was going on.
Yeah.
Our regular cast, as always, includes Sarah Michelle Gellar as Buffy, Nicholas Brendan as Xander, Allison Hannigan as Willow, Charisma Carpenter as Cordelia, David Boreanaz as Angel, and Anthony Stewart Head as Giles. Our guest stars this week include Greg Vaughn as Richard, Todd Babcock as Tom, Jordana Spiro as Callie, Robin Atkin Downs as Makata, and Danny Strong as Jonathan Levinson. Our episode synopsis this week reads, Buffy and Cordelia attend a fraternity bash where they're offered as human sacrifices to a half-man, half-snake creature.
Huh. Ours are very similar this week. Mine says Buffy and Cordelia attend a frat party where they are offered as human sacrifices to a reptile-like creature.
All right.
Pretty similar. They're usually kind of far apart.
Yeah, they're usually not that close in synopses.
Right.
So we jump into our cold open, and we are at the Summers home. It's nighttime, and we see Buffy and Xander and Willow in Buffy's room, and they're watching a Hindi movie, an Indian movie, and they're discussing the movie. And Xander questions why the woman on the screen is singing, and Willow says she's sad because her lover gave her 12 gold coins, but then the wizard cut open the bag of salt, and now the dancing minions have nowhere to put their big maypole fish thing.
Willow, thanks for that.
Right, and I specifically brought that up because I just thought it was hilarious.
Yeah.
So they keep talking about the movie, and we end up cutting to outside a large house, and we pan across the lawn of the house and then up to a balcony where all of a sudden a girl yeets herself through a fucking glass door window. I don't know what it is, but I was
it's a fucking plate glass fucking window is what it is.
And I was like, what the hell just happened? She did not have nearly enough momentum to go through that window.
Oh no, that was definitely sugar glass, but still.
Right.
Holy fuck. And then she barrel rolls off the fucking balcony over the railing 30 fucking feet below.
Yes. Um, so after she gets to her feet, she starts to run, and we see five. I think it's five, 4 or 5 robed figures come out of the house and give chase after her, and she ends up running into a tree line, and eventually she climbs up the branch of a small tree and jumps over a wall, and has now landed herself in the cemetery. And
As always happens in Sunnydale.
right. Um,
Throw a rock and you hit a fucking cemetery in Sunnydale.
right. So she's in the cemetery, and
I wanted to make a note really quick.
Yeah.
I forgot to write it in my notes
Mm-hmm.
because I was busy scribbling and watching, but I noticed, did you notice when she gets into the graveyard, did you happen to notice the first 2 headstones that she passed and what they said?
No.
I could be misremembering, but it's very similar to the first one says father and the second one says son. That's all they say.
All right. You know what? Now that you mention it, I do think I think I saw that, and I think the one you think said father actually just said dad.
Yeah, or it might say, yeah, it's like dad, and then one says son.
Yes, I do remember that, because I remember watching it, and I was like, what? That's such a generic fucking headstone.
Yeah, like no dates, no names.
Right.
No, just dad, son.
Right. But there's also like, she, at one point when she's running past tombstones, there's like this very intricate like pyramid tombstone.
Yeah, like somebody out of fucking Egypt. Yeah.
Right. Like it's a legit pyramid, and the other like very nice obelisk tombstones and stuff.
It's a pharaoh from Egypt. They brought from the what do they call that? The land of the kings, or the
something like that. Yeah.
Yeah,
Valley of Kings.
They decided to bring it to Sunnydale and rebury him.
As if Sunnydale hasn't had enough problems with mummies recently.
Right. They brought a couple extra just in case.
So she's in the cemetery now, and these robed figures all follow her over the wall, and she, as we said, she's running through the cemetery, and she ends up running smack dab into one of these guys wearing a robe, and he addresses her as Callie, and he's like, "Where are you going? The party's just getting started." And she starts to cry, and he shoves her into the group of other robed figures, and they drag her away, and he looks around to make sure no one saw anything, and he pulls his hood over his head and turns and follows them all back to the house. And that's our cold open.
And by the way, he looks like a classic 90s douchebag.
Oh yeah.
If I don't even think I need to describe it any further. Just picture in your head classic 90s douchebag. That's what this guy looks like.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I got to, before we move on, I've got to bring it up. So this chick yeets herself out of fucking plate glass window, like it's not even there. Like she does this every couple of weekends. Fucking like gymnastic Olympics, tumbles over the railing, down about 30 feet onto the ground, lands like a fucking like she's a supernatural creature. But then as soon as she hits the ground, all of a sudden she's slow and clumsy and goofy, and she's like tripping and falling, and then she falls, and then I don't know, it turned into the trope. And at first I was thinking, oh shit, okay, they're gonna this girl's gonna be like a match for these guys. And no. Once she did her Jedi shit, all of a sudden she was like, oh, I've used up all my force points, I'm done. I don't, it bugged me.
I don't know. I don't recall her really like tripping and stumbling that much.
Oh, yeah, she did. And then, like, when she got to that tree that was, or was it a tree? Whatever it was right by the fence that she had to go over to get into the graveyard, she fell flat on her fucking face right there. And she had to get up, and that gave, of course, the guys time to catch up big time with her. And I don't know. It just, my point is, like, they started her out like, ooh, this chick's a badass. Like, I was thinking, uh-oh, like, they're going to have problems with her. And no, they didn't have any. Once they actually caught her, she didn't even attempt to fight at all. She was just like, no, please don't harm me. I just hate when they do, the trope girl equals weak thing, like she should have like crammed her knee in that dude's fucking sack and, at least fucking fought, had a little bit of fighting. Then I'd have been like, yeah. But, it's the 90s. It's Joss Whedon who's hates women. So,
well, and I mean, like, I understand what you're saying, but also, and granted, it was all off screen before we got to see anything, but she apparently fought them off inside the house.
Yeah, so she couldn't at least.
She's probably tired, Jeremy.
She couldn't throw a couple of stiff kicks.
She was probably tired. She fought these guys off in the house, yeeted herself through a plate glass window, fell 30 feet to the ground, jumped over a wall. She's tired.
Just a couple of kicks to the dick is all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying. But anyway, we come back from our cold open, and it's the next morning at school, and Cordelia's reading. I think it's a magazine, an article out of a magazine, and it's all about how to impress guys. And she's talking about what it says is that you should laugh at everything they say. So she starts showing her friend that she's reading this to. She's like, see, ha, 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 and she's doing like horrible fake laughs and whatnot. And so she's practicing her fake laughter. And Buffy, meanwhile, is telling Willow, as they're walking through the halls, that she dreamed about Angel for the third night in a row. And Willow's like, oh, really? What was he doing? And Buffy's just like, stuff. And that kind of where that trails off. And Willow's like, well, why don't you ask him out for coffee rather than trying to go like on a full on, date. And she's talking about how going out for coffee is like the standard new thing in this day and age. This is the 90s, of course. And they start discussing the difficulties of having a relationship with Angel. Him being so much older, a vampire, she's the Slayer, yada, yada. And Xander walks up, and he's kind of feeling excluded from the conversation. So he goes up to Cordelia, who, of course, insults him immediately, as she always does when he walks up. And talks about how she's basically wants to let everybody know that she's dating a college boy, a Delta Zeta Kappa fraternity brother, which is big shit, And she says, as far as she's concerned, college guys are the only way to go, as we all know. And then the bell rings, and Buffy's like, oh, shit, I'm 10 minutes late. She was supposed to go meet Giles. She realizes, fuck, I'm 10 minutes late. So she's like, I don't think he'll be upset, though, since there's really nothing going on. There's not really any supernatural shit that's been happening. So everything should be fine. And then we cut where, James?
To the library, and everything is not fine. Giles is chastising her for her recent lack of diligence in training, and despite the current drought of paranormal activities, pretty much demanding that she stick to her training schedule and report to the library during free periods and after school. And she kind of counters with the fact that while she may be the Slayer, she's also still a 16-year-old high school student, and she needs to have a social life. And Giles, he understands, but he's also not backing down this time. He's kind of standing his ground.
He's also a huge dick about it. Yeah.
And he's, demands that she be there immediately after 6th period today to do her homework and then train. And she starts to pout, and he's not having it. He's like, it's not having any effect on me. And it's the same conversation. I'm like, as much as I love the relationship between Buffy and Giles, I'm kind of getting tired of this. Almost every week we have this, you're the Slayer, you have sacred duties, but I'm also a 16-year-old high school girl conversation.
And then they seem to come together, meet somewhere in the middle, but then the next week we're right back to the beginning again.
Right. So. And then we cut to the front of the school after school, and Buffy's sitting on the railing of the stairs, and Xander and Willow walk up, and they're talking about what a long day it was, and Willow comments that Xander even skipped 3 classes, and Xander says, well, those flew by too. And sorry, I lost my place. And they walk up to Buffy and ask her, what she's doing. They thought she was supposed to be with Giles in the library, and she says she's dawdling with her friends, which is a direct quote of what Giles had previously told her not to do after school. And as they're talking, Cordelia comes by and bumps into Willow and keeps going down the stairs and approaches a black BMW as it pulls up, and they're all watching her, and the window of the car rolls down, and this guy inside says Cordelia's name, and Cordelia addresses him as Richard and tells him he has a nice car. And he's got a friend sitting in the passenger seat, and he notices Buffy and kind of points her out to Richard. And Richard tells Cordelia that they're having a get together tomorrow night at the frat house, and Cordelia starts to do her fake laugh, which completely confuses Richard. And she stops and says she'd love to go, and Richard asks who her friend is and kind of nudges towards Buffy, and Cordelia says they're not friends, and this other guy in the car says she's amazing, and Cordelia says we're more like sisters, that's how close we are. And Richard asks for an introduction, and
always the opportunist, Cordelia is.
And Cordelia realizes she kind of doesn't have a way out of it, and she goes and grabs Buffy, and Xander's talking about watching another Indian movie tonight as Cordelia approaches them and pulls Buffy away and back over to Richard at the car, and Richard's gotten out of the car at this point, and he introduces himself to Buffy and calls her sweetheart, and the whole thing's just very cringy.
Yeah.
And
very 90s cringy.
Yeah.
Hey, sweetheart, want to go for a ride? I have candy.
So Buffy's immediate is like, I'm not interested, and she tries to leave, and Cordy grabs her, and Richard's like, what, she likes to play hard to get? And at this point, Tom has gotten out of the car now, and he's like, no, Richard, I think you're just playing easy to resist. And Buffy starts to leave again, and this guy kind of keeps after her, and he tells Buffy, to feel free to ignore him, and introduces himself, and his name's Tom, and they're having a conversation, and we're kind of intercut with Willow and Buffy who are watching, or Willow and Xander who are watching on, and Xander's adding his little commentary to their conversation, oh, she's not going to fall for that, and this and that, and Tom and Buffy keep talking, and Buffy seems a little taken with him, but ultimately kind of turns down his invitation to come to the party tomorrow night because she's involved with someone. And at that point, we hear Giles call after Buffy, and Buffy turns around and skedaddles off to the library with Giles.
Indeed. So then we cut over into the library, and a very well padded Giles, like in pads from like fucking head to toe, attacks Buffy with a sword and a staff, but it looks more like a stick. Of course, she quickly owns him and sends him flying over a table. And so he dismisses her and sends her to patrol. So then we cut, and she's making her rounds through the graveyard as she normally does. And she sees something shining in the grass, so she bends over and picks it up. And it's like a bracelet, but it's half a bracelet. And it obviously had a full word engraved on it, but all she can see is the half she has, which just says ENT. So Angel shows up, and he's like, yeah, there was blood on that too. And she's like, oh, how do you know that? And he's like, because he can smell it. And she kind of makes a comment about how it'd be nice if they saw each other, when it wasn't like a blood related thing or end of the world kind of thing. And she mentions the idea that whole go out for coffee thing that Willow had told her earlier. And I don't know. Angel just kind of starts acting weird, and I didn't really understand this scene the way it was written and portrayed. I was like, he gets kind of like, all of a sudden he's like, well, it's irresponsible and dangerous for us to get involved, and you're only 16, I'm 240, and I don't know. He just all of a sudden he's Mr. Responsibility, and
it's the same thing as with the Buffy and Giles conversations. Yeah, exactly. Each week. Buffy and Angel keep having this same conversation. I'm a vampire. You're not just the Slayer, but you're mortal. The bigger issue than the fact that she's the Slayer, and then they seem to come to some sort of common ground where neither of them care about that, and then
the next episode,
next week, it's the same conversation again.
Yeah, going around in circles. So, she gets upset about how he's dismissing her, and her feelings and everything. So she just basically runs off. And the next day at school, Cordy finds Buffy, and she's all trying to be nicey. And Buffy's like, why, she's like, why are you fucking trying to be nice to me? And well, when it comes down to it, the boys aren't willing to let Cordelia come alone to this frat party, that she has to bring Buffy also in order to come, because there has to be an even number of guys and girls or whatever. So, and of course, Cordelia's gonna go, so she's gonna basically fucking force Buffy to go too. And because what it all boils down to is this Richard guy that she's dating, this fraternity boy. He's heir to like a shitload of money, very rich, very powerful family. So of course, Cordy wants to hitch her wagon to that train, and so that's what it's all boils down to. And And then, like, at first, Buffy's like, fuck, I'm not going to that. But then she kind of remembers the deal with Angel the night before and how he pissed her off. So she's like, yeah, you know what? Fuck it. Let's do this shit. And so they agree. And then what happens, James?
We cut back to the house we previously saw. And we are in the basement. And it appears it's a frat house. And it appears that a pledge is taking an oath. And
I have a clip of it if you want to hear it.
Play it. Let's do it.
Let's do it. Here's the oath.
I pledge my life and my death.
I pledge my life and my death.
To the Delta Zeta Kappas and to Makita, whom we serve.
The Delta Zeta Kappas and to Makita, whom we serve.
On my oath, before my assembled brethren.
On my oath, before my assembled brethren.
I promise to keep our secret from this day to my death.
I promise to keep our secret from this day until my death.
In blood I was baptized, in blood I shall reign. In his name.
In blood I was baptized, and in blood I shall reign. In his name.
Now one of us.
In his name!
In his name!
And then the guy says, okay, brewski time, and loud music and beers start flowing.
Yes, and we see that Callie from our cold open is there.
Chained to the wall in this weird dungeon-looking place.
Yep, and while they were doing the pledge, Richard was carving symbols into the pledges.
Which do we ever really get to
chest.
see what the
sword.
symbols are? Or
I think they're the same symbols that are on Tom later.
which, by the way, that's a Charles V replica sword from Marto that he's using, which was a very common sword you also used on the Highlander show with usually white guys.
Okay. Does anyone care?
No. Only me.
I'm sorry. I had to.
Yeah, I would have done the same thing. If you hadn't have done that, I would have been pretty disappointed in you.
So yeah, they Callie's chained to the ceiling and crying, and meanwhile everyone goes off to have their finish their little party.
Oh, and don't forget what the creepy line he says.
What's a girl like you doing here? Or something
No. Like at the very end, before like the scene ends, he goes, God, I love high school girls.
Oh yeah.
I was like, hey. So
Yeah.
he's supposed to be like probably early 20s at least.
Well, so here, let's backtrack a little bit because you brought it up and it was something I thought about, and I didn't put it in my notes here, but it's something I thought about when I was watching. So when Tom and Buffy are talking, Tom tells Buffy that he's a senior at the college. So he's and they're drinking. Well, I mean, they're drinking, so that doesn't really matter. But he's 21.
22 minimum.
He's at least 21.
Well, yeah, at least.
And Buffy in that conversation confirms that she is a sophomore. She's 16. So ew.
Yeah. Yeah. But
and like so 6 years in the grand scheme of things, not a huge age difference.
well, no, not when you're both in your fucking 30s.
Right, I was just going to say not a big deal once both parties are over 21.
Right. If one of you's 30 and one of you's 36, not a big deal.
Right.
But when one of you is 6 and one of you is 12,
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
But dude, honest to God, this was common. When I was in high school, I remember there was several girls that were dating college boys, and I don't know. But now when you look back on it, it's like, oh.
Right. And like I myself, like at 21.
I'm also a high school dater?
No.
Oh, okay.
But like looking back, like when I was 21, I can't imagine what I would have possibly had in common with somebody that was 16.
Hello? Yeah.
Like
I know. I'm going to be 44 in November, and I don't know what I could possibly have in common with someone who's 40. So
right. I'll be 42 in February. And
because
like
40, someone who would be I don't think they would. Okay, I'm Gen X. I don't even think they would be. I don't know.
well, I mean, realistic being in our early 40s, dating anyone under like 30 would anybody
That would
would
never
they'd
happen.
be old enough. They'd
Oh,
be old
God.
enough to be our child.
I would have. What the hell could you possibly have to talk about with somebody in their 20s?
That's what I'm saying.
So, how was preschool?
Right.
You probably remember it because you're not very old.
Right. That's what I'm saying. Like I can't imagine what I would have in common with someone in their 20s.
And they would be using all of those weird acronyms that Zoomers use now that I don't understand, and weird words. And
well, I do use a lot of those weird acronyms and words. My buddy Steve gets upset with me.
they're like, "Shut up, boomer! I'm not a fucking boomer."
So where were we? Oh, we're at Sunnydale High now in the lounge, and Willow and Buffy and
only Buffy, Willow, Xander use. It's
right.
their personal private lounge in the high school.
Right. And they're talking about how Buffy decided to go to the frat party, and that's the gist of that small scene. There's really nothing major there. And we cut to the library and we see Giles comes out of his office and he's got a sword kind of hidden behind his back, and he looks around, and when he sees there's no one there, he starts practicing with the sword, and he's doing this as the three of them walk in, Buffy, Willow, and Xander, and he's startled to see them, and he tries to make like nothing's going on, and
they had a total missed opportunity there. It would have been hilarious if they had when he lifted up the sword like he was going to come down and kill the imaginary whatever. He should have said, "There can be only one." That
do you think any of these people behind the scenes were Highlander fans?
I don't know about fans, but they were certainly aware of the show. You know, I mean,
probably
you had, if you were in the industry in making television shows in the 90s, you had to be aware because that was a mega successful show. Not so much in North America, but around the world, it was a mega successful show in France, UK, Germany, Japan.
Oh yeah, it was way bigger across the pond than it was over here.
Oh yeah, it was mega big.
Even up in Canada.
Yeah. When I said North America, I should have just said America.
Oh. Yeah, because I mean it was a half of the production was French.
So. Right. And here in the States, you know, it was just a cult following basically, but pretty much the rest of the world, it was a massive show.
Yeah.
But anyway.
Anywho, so they come into the library and Giles plays it off and kind of tosses the sword casually into the weapons cage lockup, and
shut.
Buffy gives him the bracelet that she found at the cemetery and to Giles, and they talk about it a little bit, and then Buffy makes up an excuse about not being able to patrol tonight because her mother's sick and she's not feeling well, and her and Xander and Willow end up leaving the library, and Xander and Willow are clearly not happy with Buffy, you know, lying to Giles like that, but Buffy doesn't care, and she goes on her merry way. And then we cut to later in the lounge, and Buffy and Cordelia are sitting at a table, and Cordelia's going over the do's and don'ts of the frat party, with Buffy, and being her usual Cordelia self, kind of, insulting Buffy,
being a bitch.
You know what? I don't think she was as Cordelia as Cordelia usually
it's not so much
is.
that's not so much that she's being an outward bitch. She's just one of those type of people, or her character is, that is so stuck up, I guess is a good word, that she doesn't even realize how cunty she is, like just the way she says things and how she talks. She doesn't even understand like how just annoying that she is,
Right. And like, I wouldn't even, like, I don't know, I think your opinion of Cordelia is worse than mine. Like, I don't, like, in this scene, like, is she being a little bit of a bitch? Yeah. I wouldn't full on saying she's being cunty.
Well, I mean, she literally tells Buffy that it's her duty to make sure that Cordelia can secure lifetime prosperity. I would call that cunty.
I don't know. But I also think Cordelia is, I don't know that Cordelia realizes she's being the way she's being.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, she's just one of those people who she is so.
I think she's so.
She has what's that? What was that thing that boy tried to claim? Affluence disease.
Right.
Yeah.
Cordelia is so privileged that she doesn't realize that what she's saying to Buffy is completely out of pocket.
Exactly.
And insulting.
That's why I say I don't think she's not always like outwardly purposefully bitchy. She's just who she is, and she doesn't realize that just how much of a bitch that makes her,
Right. So
which is
yeah,
one thing I kind of like about the character,
Right.
Like if they had made her to just be this outwardly purposeful, just bitchy, mean girl, the character wouldn't be nearly as interesting as the fact that she's just so affluent and spoiled and everything, that she just is who she is, and everybody's just like, what the fuck, man?
And I think that's something that I'm sure they did it deliberately as they wanted to bring her more into the fold of that main group there. But it's a definite change from, like, in season 1, 100% Cordelia was just being a bitch to be a bitch.
Yep.
And I think now we're kind of seeing a progression of, it's more like we both said, she's so privileged she doesn't realize that she's being rude and mean sometimes I think she is, like,
she definitely does it on purpose sometimes,
right?
But for the most part, 80% of it is just her being who she is.
Right. Like in this conversation with Buffy, a good 80 to 85% of it is just Cordelia being Cordelia and not realizing she's also, like, being rude to Buffy.
And I think we've all known people like that in real life. Maybe not to that level, obviously, because it's amped up there because it's a TV show. But we've all known people like that who just would just say some of the most rotten out of nowhere things, and you're like, and you'd look at them and they would just have no idea that was incredibly rude and fucking uncalled for.
Right.
So
yeah, like I said, Cordelia's going over the do's and don'ts of the frat party with Buffy, and Willow and Xander end up coming up, and Buffy tries to get them to join them, and they decline, and they end up going and sitting by themselves, and they have a little side conversation about, Buffy's going to frat parties and Buffy's lying, and, everything's just askew and not right. And Xander makes the determination that he's going to go to the party secretly to protect Buffy. And
maybe catch Angie.
And right,
he literally said that. Or no, Willow says.
I have this written down because I do think it's a funny exchange.
Yeah.
Xander says, "I'm going to the party." Willow, what? Xander, I got to keep an eye on Buffy. Those frat guys creep me. Him, of all people.
Right, right.
Willow, you want to protect her? Xander, Willow, and prove that you're just as good as those rich, snotty guys? Xander, Willow, maybe catch an orgy? Xander, if it's on early.
Exactly.
Like it's a TV show.
Yeah, exactly.
So
that's his main intent, I think. I think we all know Xander. I think it's 20% protect Buffy, 80% he wants to be in an orgy.
Right. Or at the very least see an orgy.
Or at least see it. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So
that night. Oh, do you want me to take over?
No, I was going to say, and we cut to the street in front of the fraternity that night, and then I was going to hand it over to you.
And Cordelia comes flying up and just smashes into the back of a car, and that's how she parked. And Buffy just is kind of looking around like, the fuck just happened? And the house... Oh, this is when we first discovered that this frat house is in fact the same frat house that we saw the girl come yeeting out of in the opening scene.
Right.
So now we already know some shit's going to go down.
Which, I mean, we as viewers, we could have figured that out because clearly Richard is the same dude from the cold open.
The same douchebag, yeah.
So.
Yep. So, Cordelia's all excited, and now Buffy's starting to kind of rethink the whole thing. Like, do I really want to be, should I really have came? And of course they go in and they spot Richard. And of course he immediately gives them both alcoholic drinks that are probably spiked with date rape drugs. And because, he's a shitbag. And Buffy sets hers aside and, Richard like kind of insults her about, oh, aren't you grown up? Can't you drink? Blah, blah, blah. And then Cordy.
I understand. When I was your age, I wasn't into grown up things either.
Yeah. He's a douche.
Yeah.
So then he and Cordy go off together and leaving Buffy there alone. And
they're gonna fuck.
Oh, God, wait, she's 16 and he's 22?
20.
I don't
at least
even
21.
Discuss that. So anyway, Xander, he does crash the party. He sneaks through a window, and he's having a good time right away. Grabs a drink, smiling at the girls, and this girl walks by with like an hors d'oeuvre tray, and that just immediately like takes his. He's like, it's like OCD with him.
Right.
He's like, oh shit, and he just goes off and follows that.
Yeah, as he's literally about to find Buffy.
Right, but by him turning and following the hors d'oeuvre tray, he does not see Buffy is indeed standing there alone in the corner. That's her in the corner. That's her in the spotlight. She briefly
about to lose her religion.
Yes, exactly. So she's thinking about drinking the drink, and then she kind of
drinks.
Then she's like, "Nah, I ain't no hua. I don't want to drink no drink." And go ahead.
No,
I know you want to say something.
She's like, I'm not a whore like my mom. No.
Oh,
it's terrible.
So then, of course, right at that time, the dance music like turns slow, like for like slow dance type stuff, and of course, all the different little couples get together there.
Right, like most dances, the boys pair off on one wall and the girls on another because boys and girls are icky to each other.
They don't want to touch and get cooties.
Right. It's really awkward. It's a really awkward scene.
Yeah. From across the room, she's because they all just stand there and look at each other.
Right.
That's the whole rest of the episode. They're all just
right. Let's get into a little monster out now.
Yeah. Okay. Anyway, Buffy looks up across the room and sees this guy who like raises his glass to her, and Buffy raises hers back, and she's about to take a drink, and this big creepy drunk fucking idiot basically is like, throws the attractive dude across the room, and then he starts charging towards Buffy. He's like, ah, it's like some drunk Homer Simpson. And at the very last minute, Tom from earlier pulls Buffy out of the way, and they begin dancing. And of course, Tom is all super charming again, like he was earlier, and convincing her that there's nothing wrong with taking some time off from her responsibilities to have a little fun. And Tom apologizes again for talking too much and offers to leave Buffy alone, but she keeps dancing with him because he's just so fucking charming. And Xander, meanwhile, he's just having a great fucking time, flirting with girls and yada yada.
Playing with hors d'oeuvres.
Hors d'oeuvres. He's playing with hors d'oeuvres. And also watching orgies.
There's no orgies happening.
There probably would have been if Joss could have gotten away with it. But then Richard,
I've pictured Joss salivating over David Greenwald's shoulder as Greenwald's whining them, like, put the underage orgy in there. Put the underage orgy in there.
Make sure they say that they're underage during the orgy.
Greenwald's like, Joss, we can't do that. We can't. We'll never get away with that. Leave me alone.
And Joss is like, I'll be back. You better have the orgy in when I come back.
You better have the orgy in there when I get back.
So, where was I at? So Xander's
Something wrong with us.
Well, we've known that for a long time. Jesus. Xander's standing with a few girls and he's flirting and whatnot, and Richard and that big fucking goofy drunk dude spot him at this time and realize that he's a crasher, that he's not even a college age kid. And so they drag him away shouting, new pledge, and the rest of the party follows along, and except Buffy, because she's gone out onto the porch and she steps on some broken grass. She steps on broken glass and picks a little piece up and looks at it, and then she looks up above, like where it would have came from, and she sees a boarded up window on the second floor balcony where that Callie had yeeted herself out. And Tom at that time comes out on the porch too to join Buffy, noticing the glass in her hand, and Richard comes out with drinks, and Buffy finally decides that she's tired of being mature, so she downs her drink in one gulp, and Richard and Tom look at each other evilly and drink.
Buffy's like, I am a whore like my mom, and downs her drink.
Whoa. So we're back at the library, and Willow and Giles are working on figuring out what the word on the bracelet, like what it could have said. They had the ENT, and they're trying to figure out what was the rest prior to that. And go ahead. Were you going to say something?
No.
Oh, I thought you were going to say something. My bad. They're going through like different words that could be with ENT in it, and they come across the word Kent, and that's when Willow said, that bracelets looked familiar. She had said that before, and she's seen girls from the Kent preparatory school wearing bracelets like this. So she pulls up Kent's latest newsletter online, because that's easy to do in '97, and finds an article about Callie's disappearance. Isn't that just easy?
Very, very handy. Well, I think a school newsletter. I buy the idea that a school newsletter would be available online
with an article about a missing student.
Yeah. You would want to bring awareness to your other students that there's a missing student, and you should probably be careful on campus.
Okay. I'll buy it. I'll buy that for $1. And then we zip back to the frat with Xander, and what's happening to poor Xander, James?
Xander's being hazed.
He's being literally sexually assaulted, in my opinion.
They call it hazing, Jeremy. Okay.
I
And
I
it's
call
fine.
it I call it
It's fine.
sexual harassment.
Nope, it's fine. It's just a little college hazing, and there's nothing wrong with it.
Okay. I'll allow it.
Yeah, he's being hazed as fuck.
Yeah.
They've got him stripped down to his skivvies and wearing a very padded woman's bra and
A large
cur-
bra.
a curly blonde wig. They're putting makeup on him. And they're making him dance.
Yeah. And they start, and like everybody around has got those wooden frat paddles, and they're all hitting him with them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I enjoyed it. Xander's getting exactly what he deserves.
Yeah, true. I mean, you can't argue that.
Right. So then we cut to Buffy at the front door of the fraternity, and she's woozy from her drink and kind of steadying herself on the wall, and she makes her way over to the stairs and knocks some stuff over, and kind of looks over at what's going on in the next room and sees what's being done to Xander, but of course Xander's got his back to her, so she doesn't know that it's Xander. And she's looking for Tom, calling for Tom, and Jerry, and and she ends up upstairs. We cut to a bedroom upstairs, and Buffy pushes open the door, and she comes in and bumps into a statue, and steadies herself, and then heads for the bed, and she lays down and falls asleep. And
oh no, she passes out because they've put a date rape drug in her drink.
Right. Well, we don't know that she's been drugged yet.
Well, we kind of did at the very beginning. Because these are creepers, and I just always assume.
Right. I assumed that she had been drugged too, because while I was watching it, I started to question whether or not her Slayer powers would actually allow her to get drunk off of one drink.
Yeah, no, I don't think so. I don't think.
Like, how much would she
have
have
to? What it was she drank, but I would assume it was some type of liquor that she downed in one drink. But I don't think one drink is going to put somebody fucking stone cold out. Anybody.
Well, I've known some lightweights in my time.
Oh.
We definitely are of no use to anybody after one strong drink.
Wow.
But my thing was I don't think with her Slayer powers that I don't think you would get drunk that easily off of one drink.
Yeah, one wouldn't think so, but
right. So I presumed at this point that they had probably drugged her. And she passes out, and of course Richard shows up, and he's being all creepy over her passed out body. And then Tom shows up and pushes Richard away, and they have a little confrontation, and Richard says he was just having a little fun, and Tom's like, well, she's not here for your fun. She's here for the pleasure of the one we serve. And Richard gets ashamed, and
that's when we discover for the first time that Tom is apparently the one who's in charge of all this. We were led to believe it was Richard, but apparently it's Tom.
And Richard's all ashamed, and Tom's like, and that goes for that one too. And the camera pans from Tom to Buffy on the bed, and then finally to Cordelia passed out on the floor next to the bed. And that takes us back to the library. And Giles has printed out the front page of the newsletter with Callie's picture on it.
Have you seen this girl?
And he's reading from the article and says that she's been missing for over a week, and no one's seen her and knows what's happened to her, and Willow's like, well, since this is Sunnydale, we can rule out anything good, and
Yeah.
Giles says he's going to call Buffy, and Willow insists that he doesn't, and
Why doesn't he just text her?
he doesn't have a cell phone.
What?
No, he's going to call her on a regular phone.
I know, I'm being a smartass. He should have just texted her. Or checked her status on Facebook. She probably updated it.
Yeah, it was MySpace back then, my friend.
Oh, well, that was even before MySpace.
97?
I would, pretty sure.
No, because I was on MySpace in high school, and 97
Really?
was towards the end of my high school run. Yeah.
I think you might be a little high.
Okay. So Willow dissuades him from calling because, Buffy and her mom are sick, yada yada. And they find several other missing girls from the preparatory. Yeah,
you're wrong, by the way. Facebook
What?
launched in 2003.
Did it?
Yeah.
So they find out that there's other missing girls dating back to a year almost to the day. And Giles, he says they need to find out where Buffy found the bracelet, and he goes to call her again, and Willow's like, no, call Angel. We're going to need all the help we can get. And Giles agrees with her. And we cut back to the fraternity house. And what's going on over there?
Well, the party's over at this point. And scary drunk dude and his friend basically just yeet Xander out the fucking door. They're done fucking with him. I guess they've done raping him now. Because you know that happened. Which, honestly, well, nobody deserves to be raped, but he definitely deserved to be harassed and made fun of. Xander did, I mean. Anyway, he tries to ask about Buffy, but they just slam the door in his face, and we kind of pan down, cut to that underground weird cave that happens to be underneath this frat house. And Richard and a bunch of the frat boys they're wearing their robes again, their monk robes, and chanting and being weird. And Richard's literally carving this like diamond shape into Tom's bare back with a sword. Like, they couldn't use a small, easy to maneuver knife. He's holding like a 40-inch long sword. And anyway, yeah. So he's carving these. Go ahead.
I was gonna say the sword is probably essential to the ritual.
Why wouldn't they? Okay, if that's the case, and we know that symbols are going to have to be carved in people, how about choosing a knife as the ceremonial essential part of the ritual?
The old ones don't like to do things that way.
Yeah, because the old ones are fucking dumb. So let's see where we're at. We see now Buffy and Cordelia are now chained to the wall, also next to Callie.
Also, let's mention too, Tom's got these symbols like all over his chest and back.
Yeah, like he's covered in this shit.
Yeah.
Like old ones, that are all scarred over and whatnot. Then he's got some fresh. It's really weird. So yeah, Buffy and Cordy are coming to, and they're chained to the wall, and of course Buffy realizes the drinks were drugged, which I called at the very beginning. Buffy, you dummy. And Callie's still down there, it seems so important that they catch this girl at the beginning of the episode. And now here we are several days later, and she's still just chained to the wall down there. So she's covered in urine and feces at this point, because it's been days. And here's another thing that bothered me, and you're going to make fun of me for saying this, but they've got them chained, like their hands above their heads kind of deal, the tropey movie thing. And Callie's been down there for we'll just say conservatively, at least 3 to 4 days. At least. She has absolutely zero armpit hair growth. Baby smooth armpits. That bothers me. I'm just saying. Can we have a little realism? I mean, what are they giving her a razor so she can shave once a day? You know?
Can I please have some realism in my show about a chosen one who fights the forces of darkness?
That's
Can I
right.
please get some underarm stubble
Thank
on this
you.
lady who's been chained up for like 4 days? Please.
Well, it's the same thing. The same thing bothers me when it's like a guy and say he's been captured and he's in a basement for a week, but then he has like no facial hair growth at all.
Let's put this to bed right now.
Okay.
Kaylee is not a shaver. She's a waxer.
Or maybe she has what is it? It starts with an A, apropecia.
Right.
You have no idea what I'm talking about, do you?
No, I know what you're talking about.
Maybe she has that.
Maybe.
Therefore, no body hair.
Right. But then she wouldn't have hair on her head.
Well, maybe that's a wig.
She's been chained up for 4 days. That wig would have fallen off. You want to
Maybe
talk about realism?
Maybe
Come
it's
on,
glued.
man.
Maybe it's glued on. Bruh.
Come on, man. I think
Okay.
It's better if we just agree that she's a waxer, not a shaver. And
But
that's why her underarm is still so smooth.
Since I was a kid, those types of things just drive me insane, though. Like I said, even if it's a guy and he's been like chained up in a basement for a few days and he has perfectly shaven, clean face, it drives me batshit.
You've never known anyone that can't grow facial hair to save their fucking life?
A guy?
Yeah.
No, not if they're, over the age of like 18.
Okay.
You have?
Oh, yeah.
Well, that's not a man then. He was born a woman. No, I didn't even know that was a thing. Okay.
I mean, obviously they can grow facial hair, but like not like my facial hair, I shaved last night and this is what I have already.
Yeah.
But I definitely know people that if they shaved last night, they would not look like this. They would still be baby butt smooth. Because their
nice.
hair just
Hey,
their
I would like
facial
to
hair
have
just,
that personally.
Me too.
Because I hate dragging a razor across my face.
I hate shaving. That's why I had that big ass beard.
Yeah. Okay.
But
well,
anyway.
Let's get back to it. They've had the drink. Yeah, Buffy realizes the drinks were drugged. And Callie explains that Tom is special among the brothers and he is the most dangerous. So, again, reiterating that Tom is the leader, not Richard, who is the clear, he's the out front douche and Tom is the undercover douche. So Richard finishes carving into him, and Tom puts on a special, green silk robe, and then all of a sudden his eyes glow green as well, and he orders Buffy to be saved for last, and then he begins preparations for the ceremony, pouring water over these 3 stones, and Buffy makes a connection: 3 stones, 3 girls. So here's my question.
Mm-hmm.
Are they going to are they going to beat each one of them to death with 1 stone? Is that the connection we're supposed to make?
I don't know, because unfortunately, spoiler warning, our monster of the week gets killed before any part of the ritual beyond the cleansing of the stones can take place. So.
True. But I just wondered if your mind had kind of went there as well, but
it didn't.
Okay. I'm a serial killer apparently, because I thought, okay, 3 rocks, 3 girls. He pours water over the rocks. What do they have to take each 1 rock and beat one of them to death? That's a pretty fucked up ceremony,
Right.
But these are pretty fucked up dudes. So.
They are fucked up dudes, but also, since we know from our synopsis that this is a half serpent being that that they're getting ready to give these girls to. I highly doubt that it would take them dead.
Well, maybe he just wanted the meat tenderized. Maybe he has gingivitis and it's hard for him to eat,
It's
tough
possible.
meat.
It's possible.
Okay. All right. Well, so we're back in the library now, and Angel's telling Willow and Giles that Buffy found the bracelet near the south wall of the cemetery. And Willow, of course, being the brilliant deducer that she is, realizes that the south wall is near the fraternity house and suddenly puts it all together in her head and freaks out. So Angel and Giles decide to go and investigate. And Willow finally she has to blurt out the truth that it's important because Buffy and Cordelia are at that house. Buffy had lied to Giles, blah, blah, blah. Well, then Willow, Giles gets all butthurt about the fact that Buffy lied to him, and Willow basically just fucking unloads on both of them.
Tell me you pulled the clip.
I didn't.
Oh.
I didn't. I probably should have, but it was a really good rant on her part.
It was. I really thought that was going to be a clip you pulled.
Dude, sometimes I fuck up. Even I. No, I didn't. But she basically just tears them both new assholes and saying that they basically drove Buffy to this. Giles never allows her any free time. It's constantly putting her under pressure. And she's like, she's 16 going on 40. And you, talking to Angel, you keep blowing her off, refusing to even go out for coffee. She just fucking cuts them both down.
Yeah, and she really lets them have it.
And it was really good. I totally should have pulled that clip. So after she's done venting, she insists they go off and help Buffy. And we cut and we see Xander's walking away from the house, kind of bitter about what happened when he sees Cordelia's car still parked in front of the house there, and the party's over. So he pretty much he gets suspicious, and so he heads back towards the frat house.
Can we point out that Cordelia's license plate says Queen C?
Yes, we can get that out because I threw up in my mouth when I saw it. So I'll just do this last little bit here. We cut back to that underground cavern, and Tom is conducting this ceremony, and he's doing this prayer thing to this so-called god named Makita, which I thought was just an odd choice, but whatever. Long story short, this Makita that these frat boys worship and everything, and they give sacrificial women to, or I should say girls, he's the source of all of their different families' power and prestige and money and wealth, all that. So, and this is apparently something that's been going on for generations of this frat. So every year they offer him a sacrifice, and this year it's Buffy, Cordy, and this Callie. And Tom continues on with this prayer thing, and Buffy's pulling at her chains and trying to loosen them. And then Tom throws those 3 stones down this shaft, into this well. And then all the frat boys start praying for Makita to come forth, and then all of a sudden this fucking creepy looking snake demon man looking thing comes up out of this big shaft, and he's kind of floating up, up above them and shit. And they continue their prayer, offering the girls as food, literal food. So he's just going to eat them. And that's when Buffy starts really yanking at the chains. Well, that didn't sound right, did it? You know what I meant. Really trying to get free.
She really tries to pull him off. Wait.
Okay. Then what happens next, James? We're gonna just that.
Let's see. Buffy was yanking the chain.
Willow, Giles, and Angel get to the frat house.
Wait. How? Oh, okay. I'm sorry. So my notes tend to break where there were like commercial breaks.
Mine do normally, but
yeah. So, but yeah. So we're outside the house, and Angel, Willow, and Giles show up, and they're walking from the bushes by the street into the lawn, and they're looking at the house, and a robed figure comes up behind them, and Angel spins around to confront him, and it turns out to be Xander. Willow kind of fills him in on the missing girls and how this fraternity, the Zeta Kappas, are probably involved, and Xander tells them that he thinks Buffy and Cordy are still inside because Cordelia's car is still there. And Giles asks why he's wearing the robe,
and women's underwear.
He doesn't ask about women's underwear. And Xander says he found it in the trash, and he put it on because he saw through the windows that a bunch of them were wearing robes and heading down to the basement, and he was going to sneak in. So Giles correctly deduces that they're probably involved in some kind of ritual, and Willow says with the missing girls, and at that point we hear Angel growl, and it cuts to him, and he's in full vamp face, and he's like with Buffy, and we cut back to the basement, and our giant snake beast is closing in on Cordelia, and Cordy's screaming, and Buffy yells out, "Hey, reptile boy." End scene, roll credits.
Yep. Then he eats her, and that's the end of Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
Right. No. And Buffy's taunting him and like, you don't want her, she's all skin and bones, and you'll be hungry half an hour later. And Tom ends up backhanding her to get her to shut up. And we cut back upstairs, and
he says to her, "No woman speaks to him."
Yeah.
Like this whole fucking last 10 minutes is such a metaphor for who Joss Whedon is.
Which is funny since he didn't have any direct involvement with the episode.
Yeah, because go ahead. Go ahead. Because he also threatens to slit her throat if she says one more word to Makita.
Right. So we cut back upstairs, and Xander knocks on the door and makes an excuse about how he got locked out dumping the trash, and our big dumb drunk idiot from before lets him, opens the door and lets him in, and Xander cold cocks this guy and knocks him out
with a pair of brass knuckles.
And
not
really. And knocks him out, and at that point Angel and Willow and Giles storm in, and we come back to the basement, and two of our frat brothers are unchaining Cordelia and holding her, and they all hear the commotion upstairs, and so Tom tells some of them to go see what's going on, and they rush upstairs, and Buffy's still struggling with her chains, and our serpent is getting ready to make the final strike on Cordelia, and Buffy finally breaks her chains loose, and she moves in between Cordy and Machada and punches him in the face, and he recoils back away from them, and Buffy starts fighting the other fraternity brothers. At which point we cut back upstairs, and Angel and Xander are fighting a couple of the fraternity brothers, and Willow's goes to the basement door and opens it, and sees what's going on, and tells everyone else that some guy's attacking Buffy with a sword, and there's a really big snake, and
get the fuck down there and help. That's the
yeah.
Forget beating up on these goofy frat nerds.
Right. So they Willow heads back into the basement. Angel and everyone else follows, and there's this whole scene there's a lot of fighting. I'm not going to get into all of that.
Lots of karate
fights. Lots of what kind of fighting, Jeremy?
Karate fights.
So yeah, there's a lot of fighting going on, and we end up Buffy ends up grabbing the sword and killing Machada.
Yeah, for a god, he's pretty easy to kill.
Yeah. That's it. I mean,
yeah, it is. I mean,
yeah,
he houses him. Then Tom and Richard they take him upstairs, like, take him away, Charlie. But there's none of them are cops, so I don't know where.
Right.
You know.
Right. When Buffy and Giles have a brief little moment where, we
have a clip if you want to hear it.
Yes, please play that clip.
Because
this is a good moment between the two of them too. I'm glad you pulled this one.
Yeah.
I told one lie. I had one drink.
Yes, and you were very nearly devoured by a giant demon snake. Words, let that be a lesson, are a tad redundant at this juncture.
I'm sorry.
So am I. I drive you too hard because I know what you have to face. From now on, no more pushing, no more prodding. Just an inordinate amount of nudging.
So they both smile and hug and walk off into the sunset, skipping and holding hands.
Right, and undoubtedly, even though they've reached
never come up again.
Even though they've reached a compromise by episode's end of her balancing her duties of being the Slayer and also being a 16-year-old high school girl, by next week they'll be having the same argument. I'm almost sure of it.
Possibly, maybe because we've watched the episode already.
Actually, I haven't watched next week's episode yet.
Oh, I've watched the whole season already.
Have you?
Once, I'm gonna have to go back for each one to do the notes, but
yeah. And we cut to the Bronze, and you want to tell us what's going on at the Bronze?
Yeah, Jonathan is super dressed up and nervous acting, and he's ordering a drink and a dry-ass fucking muffin from the counter, and rushes back over to Cordelia and gives it to her. But he's gotten the order wrong, so he hurries back to correct it. And she kind of makes her way over to Buffy and Xander and Willow where they're sitting, and now she declares that young men are the only way to go. And Xander continues. He's reading the Sunnydale paper about the whole incident, and all the boys have been sentenced to jail for life. Which, damn, that was quick.
Right?
Like, they put them through the justice system quick. Like, I'm just thinking that could have been a really long, drawn-out trial. Like,
I actually have that I have that in Goof 'em Ups and Oopsies, as the
Yeah.
fact that they were all like sentenced so quick, like
Yeah.
you know.
I don't even think if they had pled guilty from the very beginning that they would already be sentenced,
Right.
So, but it's a TV show, so. But I guess the police found bones dating back 50 years in that basement cavern thing. And all of a sudden, a lot of these companies run by former Delta Zeta Kappas are all of a sudden, their profits are plummeting. They're getting raided by the IRS and yada yada. So obviously, this Makita thing they worshipped was what was keeping them powerful and wealthy. And now that he's dead, they're all fucked. And Xander's annoyed because Willow brings the conversation back to Angel, telling Buffy how protective he was of her. And just then, guess who shows up?
Is it Angel?
It is Angel. And he's like, well, how about that coffee? And she's like, nah, I'm good. I'll let you know when I'm ready. And walks the fuck off. And I was like, hell yeah. And that's credits, folks. That's the epi.
It is. And also like that end scene between them, I took that as more of a, like, once again, Buffy and Angel have come to terms with their differences and they're gonna, kind of see where this goes. But I'm sure by next week we'll be at odds again.
Yep.
What is next week's episode? Oh, Halloween.
Halloween, yep.
Yeah, that's the end of our episode. Let's dive into a little monsterology here.
Okay, let's do that.
Jeremy, do you think it's a coincidence that Indian movies were featured rather prominently in this week's episode?
No.
You don't?
No.
You don't. And do you not think that because I asked that question?
Correct.
You would probably be right. I don't think it's a coincidence either, because half human, half snake serpent people known as Nagas, I hope I'm saying that right,
Yeah.
are a pretty big part of Indian mythology.
I did that.
Yes, and much like our villain Machada, Nagas. What?
Makita.
I'm sorry. Nagas were believed to live in underground layers.
Mm-hmm.
Some areas of southern India still worship Nagas as bringers of fertility.
Huh.
And also, our monsterology this week, I think it drew, aside from the Naga thing, I think it drew a lot of inspiration from, like Yale's Skull and Bones, secret societies.
Yeah.
On college campuses where, they're elite, members, and those members go on to be
members of the Illuminati. Yes.
Right, and high up officials in the world. So I think it pulled a lot of inspiration from that as well.
Okay.
Our body count this week is 3.
Nice.
Behind the scenes, nothing really of interest.
Yeah, I looked at some of the behind the scenes stuff, and there wasn't really.
Yeah, nothing really worth mentioning. The episode did pull a Nielsen rating of 3.5 million households.
Which is, again, in the night, that is fucking massive.
And we also were seeing that trend pretty much since the season premiere. It's holding steady at around that 3.5 mil audience.
And again, as I've said before, in those days, each household was considered 2 members. So they're basically saying 7 million people watched.
Right.
I mean, that's fucking huge in the 90s for a network, teen supernatural dramedy. Yeah, that's big fucking numbers.
Yep. Yeah, and like I said, we're pretty consistently staying in that 3 to 3.5 mil audience since the season premiere. So
We're doing something right.
Yeah, like the rate is like the people are tuning in every week, every Tuesday at 8 p.m.
Tuesday at 8 p.m. Buffy discovers that. Never mind.
On an all-new Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
Buffy discovers her mother's a whore.
Oh, wow.
Oh.
Our bronze band this week, none. We were only in the bronze very briefly at the end of the episode.
We had a band?
Nope.
You are a tease, James.
You like it. Our music this week, Bring Me On by Act of Faith from their album Scream, self-released.
Was that what was playing in the basement when they said the Brewskis and all that? Or I'm trying to think of when I heard music in the episode.
There was
also music during the frat party.
During the frat party, right.
Yeah, okay.
She by Louis Says from their album Gravity, Suffering, Love, and Fate, released by RCA Records in 1997. And original pieces, obviously they're all original pieces, but original composed for this episode: Graffiti Sound, Devil's Lair, If I Can't Have You, Wolves, and Secrets, all composed by Sean Clement and Sean Murray. Goof 'em Ups and Oopsies this week.
This is my favorite.
As we already talked about, even though the frat boys were just caught, the newspaper says they'd all been given consecutive life sentences, which is a very fast turnaround time.
Well, apparently in Sunnydale, the justice system does not work the way it does everywhere else.
So I thought about this while I was watching it, and it just occurred to me again talking about it. It is all together possible that because this is Sunnydale, it did happen expeditiously, because we're already aware of the fact that there is a massive cover-up of the weird shit that's going on.
It seems like all the adults and people in power know,
right,
that basically that this is a supernatural town, and
right. We definitely know that the police chief is involved in this cover-up, and Principal Snyder.
Yep.
So as you said, if we draw
the mayor, right, well, we will learn
that the mayor does have quite a bit of influence over what's happening in the town. But yeah, if we extrapolate that out from just our knowledge that the chief of police and Snyder are actively involved in a cover-up, then we can presume that most of the adult authority figures in this town are also part of that. When Buffy is fighting our snake beast, her shoes are initially black flats, and they go back to being chunky heels when she's finished the fight and talking with Giles.
Oh my God! They should
walking up the stairs. They shouldn't have. If your stunt person can't do the stunts in the appropriate wardrobe,
then you're no stunt person at all.
Then you're no stunt performer worth a lick. And I don't want you in my TV show.
Are fired.
Yes. And that wraps up Goof 'em Ups and Oopsies and all our lovely subcategories for our discussion of the episode. So, Jeremy, as we move into our ratings and final thoughts, tell me, how many collegiate secret societies will you give this episode?
2.
2 collegiate.
And that's all I had to say.
societies.
Episode over. No, it's a very run-of-the-mill episode. Nothing horrible, but nothing great. The things I mentioned as we were discussing were the things that annoyed me. Obviously, the Makita deal was cheesy. The fight was cheesy. She just beat him up with a sword and he's dead.
Right.
No problem. So yeah, it was a very meh episode, To me, it seemed like one of those kind of just a filler episode, Like they're going to get back to Spike and his shit, but we had to throw a couple of like meh episodes in here and because they're saving up money for some Spike episodes so they can throw some cash at in those episodes and do some crazy shit. Spike's the only one that matters in this show. Let's be honest.
Wow.
Okay. Just being real. So that's my take on it. James, how many spiked alcoholic date rape drug drinks do you give this episode?
I am going to give this episode 2 spiked date rape drugged drinks.
Okay.
We do agree. I'm with you. It's not an outstanding episode. It's not an awful episode.
Oh.
It's kind of like last week. If I was scrolling through the channels and I saw Buffy was on and it was this episode, I wouldn't turn it off.
No.
It's I do. There is some standout character interactions in this episode.
Sure.
That being Willow's confrontation of Giles and Buffy, or Giles and Angel.
And they needed it. They both needed an ass chewing.
Right. And then Giles and Buffy at the end of the episode. I like the little tidbit between Buffy and Angel at the end of the episode.
Yeah.
But again, like we said before,
is this going to pan out?
It's
play forward.
It's kind of, it's nothing that we haven't seen happen previously that is then completely ignored,
disregarded,
in a short period of time. So I look forward to the time when, and it's been so long since I've watched the series consecutively like this that I don't know when it happens. I don't remember, but I do look forward to the point where they do decide like this time it's going to stick. Like we're just going to, we're going to let these relationships be what they are and flourish from this point where, Giles and Buffy reach their understanding and Buffy and Angel, come to terms with who they are and decide to embark on a relationship and yada, yada.
I thought of this episode. The thing that kept coming to my mind while I was watching it was a very formulaic Monster of the Week episode.
It's
nothing
definitely
bad, but nothing outstanding.
There's still, the tinge of the writers and whatnot struggling with how to do standalone episodes make them
have an impact.
Right. And at the same time still tell an overarching story.
They're still figuring it out. Although it's vastly improved at this
100%
over this point in season 1,
100%.
Because I think at this point in season 1 we had the pack,
right,
and that was so bad.
Yeah, the standalone episodes in season 1 that weren't part of the master storyline were not great. I mean there were some standouts, but for the most part, they were hard. Season 1's a rough season.
Yeah.
And we talked about it earlier. I like the character progression that I think we're seeing in Cordelia at this point.
Yeah.
I think we're seeing she's gradually becoming more friendly with our core group of characters.
Yeah. Even though at the end she made sure to tell them how much she hates them all.
Right. But I mean it is still Cordelia. We're still seeing that transition. But I do think this was this episode is a good stepping stone of that character progression. I think we're seeing a Cordelia that's more willing than before to be friendlier, so to speak, with these other characters.
Right, especially when she needs them for something.
Right. And as we both know, that's something that even in this season is gonna gradually disappear, so to speak.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So, but yeah, it's a 2. Nothing outstanding, but certainly nothing awful. So.
Sure. Agreed. James.
Yes, sir.
Why don't you tell everybody how they can find us and where they can find us?
They can't. They can all go. No.
Alrighty then. Well, I've been wanting.
No. If they go to, now listen to this, Jeremy. If they go to BuffyRevisited.com, do you know what they'll find there?
I have no idea.
They will find links to our email address, which is BuffyRevisited@gmail.com.
What?
They will find links to our Facebook page. They will
you're blowing my mind right now.
They will find a link to our Twitter. And as of right now, they will still find a link to our TikTok. And they can click any of those links and reach out to us. They can talk to us about the series as a whole, Buffy and Angel. They can talk to us about specific episodes. They can talk to us about how they think we're doing. And they can talk to us about anything else they want to, really.
And they can tell us we're awesome, or they can tell us we're horrible.
Right. Well, I feel like that's encompassed, and they can talk to us about how they think we're doing.
Okay, that's fair.
But yeah, and as always, we definitely look forward to any of that. We would love to discuss the series, Buffy and Angel as a whole, or episodically with other fans. And we would love feedback on how we're doing. So
that's the whole reason we're doing this show, because we're massive fans, and and we thought, hey, what better way to connect with some people, you know?
Right. We would love to engage with other fans.
Yep.
And as you heard at the top of the show, if you do reach out to us, we will highlight that here on the show. We'll talk about what was said, good or bad. So
we give you a shout out on this nationwide, worldwide, world-renowned podcast.
No, not my point wasn't a shout out, but
I know. We'll actually discuss it.
Well, right. We'll discuss whatever you had to say, and you know, hopefully you can feel like you're involved in the conversation.
Part of the show.
Right. So that's all I've got.
Well, alrighty then. I don't have anything because I'm an idiot and a loser. So all I'm going to say is, as always, thank you for joining us. And I've been one of your hosts. I'm Jeremy.
I'm your other host, James.
Ta-ta.